Welcome back to the Foundation in C# course. We are currently in Module 8, and in this lesson, we're going to be talking about our data scenario, or how we're going to structure all of our different database types so we have a similar scenario for each. We're kind of used to that pattern. Okay, so let's talk through our scenario. The overview is it's a contact list. Think of it as the contacts in your phone. But we're going to be very, very simple in this. We're not going to go really in depth. We're going to have a first name and a last name. And then we're going to have one or more email addresses, maybe 0 email addresses, but email addresses associated with the person, and also phone numbers. So one or more phone numbers associated with that person. Okay? So Tim, Corey, email address, second email address, third email address, first phone number, second phone number, something like that. Okay? That's the scenario we're going to tackle in all of our different database applications. And since we are using the same structure over and over and over again, it'll be helpful to kind of really highlight the differences then of the different database types. It'd be more obvious what the differences are since the scenario isn't changing. All right, let's look at the queries. This is how we're going to get information in and out of our database. Now, if you're familiar with the acronym CRUD, C-R-U-D, this is following that CRUD outline. Create, read, update, and delete. Those are the 4 major types or ways to work with a database, getting information in and out. Okay? So in the create, we're going to add 2 contacts. Each contact will have 2 email addresses. But one of those email addresses is shared between the 2 of them. So for example, we're going to add myself and my wife. And one of our email addresses is one that both of us check. And then we'll have a second one that's each of us is unique to each of us. And then 2 phone numbers each. And one of those phone numbers we shared. So my wife has a cell phone, I have a cell phone, and we don't, but if we had a home phone, that would be shared between the 2 of us. Okay? So that's what we're going to create, is 2 contacts. Each contact will have 2 email addresses and 2 phone numbers. When we read information, we're going to do 2 different types of reads. First, we're going to get a contact with their phone numbers and email addresses based upon their ID. And we'll talk about that ID in a little bit. But we're going to get the contact with their phone numbers and email. So Tim, Corey, here's his 2 phone numbers, here's his 3 email addresses. Now, using a different ID, you can get my wife's contact information, her phone numbers, and her email addresses. Now, we'll also do a second type of read, which is to get all the contacts. So get every person in our list. So that's the read. Now, update is we're going to change a contact's name. So we're going to say, Tim Corey now becomes Timothy Corey. That's an update, where we're taking an existing record and making a modification to it. Finally, we'll do a delete, where we remove a phone number from a contact. So remove data from a contact. So I, got rid of my home phone, therefore we'll delete that home phone, which by the way also removes it from my wife's account too. So we'll see how to do that. Okay? So create, read, update, and delete. Those are the queries that we'll be doing in every single database type. Okay, so your pro tip is to know the data before you start, because that'll make everything easier. When you're talking about building an application, I would say that 99% of all applications are based upon data. And that may seem like it's not true, but if you think about it, pretty much everything revolves around data, whether it's displaying data or capturing data or using data in some way. And so the more you know about that data, the more you know how it works, how it relates, and what data there is, the better off you will be, because it'll make everything else easier. It'll make knowing what fields to put on your form. It'll make knowing what properties to put in your models. All those things, it'll make easier because you have a better understanding of your data. If you're going into a new organization and they have an application, get to know the data that application uses and shows and captures. The more you know that, the better your questions will be about how to add new features. the better your understanding will be in order to fix bugs and so on. So know your data. That's going to make everything else easier. Now let's look at your homework for today. Your homework is to review the data that's been set up. There we go, had a typo there. So review the data we have set up. Make sure you understand the relationships between the different pieces of information. So how does a phone number relate to a contact? How does a phone number relate to multiple contacts? And how does a contact relate to another contact? Maybe it doesn't. Okay? But making sure you understand the relationship between the different pieces of information. Can a person have more than one of this? First name. Can they have more than one first name? Will we capture that? How does it work? Think it through and make sure you understand the relationships. Now, we have a really simple scenario. Really simple. And that's intentional. But it's still important to understand how it works. Okay? So once you're done with that, then move on to the next lesson.